Okay, good morning, everyone. Afternoon, I should say, and we are live with Nancy Bauman, the book professor. So the program, again, what we're talking about today is Right to be Read, the stress-free guide to creating compelling content that people will remember. I hope you're all seeing this webcast with no issues. If you are having any technical difficulties, talk to us in the live Q&A. That's on our Hangout page here. We'll be able to try and address any problems as they come up, but hopefully everything is looking great. We have Nancy Bauman here with us. She is the book professor and author coach, and she's also the CEO of a company called Bookkarma. So Nancy, it's absolutely great to have you with us today.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks so much for inviting me.
And we're basically talking about writing to be read, I should say, and writing to be remembered. So Nancy, tell me a little bit about what you do and how that plays into this topic. As the book professor, I should say, it's a unique title.
Yeah, oh, well, thank you. Yes, I came about that because I am on the faculty at Lindenwood University and teach writing, and I also own a publishing company. And so what I've done is I actually help everyday people find the courage to tell their truth, and I give them the tools that they need to write a nonfiction book that will change lives, save lives, or transform society. And so by that, it's under the umbrella of the book professor. I've charted out a whole program that leads people all the way just from their concept to their cover to the marketing, etc. And so that's what I do. I help people change the world by writing compelling nonfiction books.
Well, that's wonderful. So tell me a little bit more about how you actually help people to do this and the significance of that. Why is it important?
Well, it kind of gets into the why I do what I do. And I really feel like our world we just have so many problems. And it's like we don't even know how to define them anymore. And it's pretty apparent that the top-down approach doesn't work to solving problems. I mean, government can't fix them, and organized religion doesn't seem to fix anything, on a widespread scale. And, Lord knows we've tried to medicate our problems away. But those things don't work. So I really, really believe that we can solve problems, and the answers are kind of trapped inside of just regular people who have been through things and who know things and have learned things and have experienced things that they can share with others that will make a complete difference in their world and in their life. So what I do as the book professor is I take them from just the idea that they might have and take it all the way through to writing their rough draft and polishing it up and getting their book published. And then I got to the point where I was thinking, okay, I've helped these people write these nonfiction books, but if they can't get connected with their audience, then it was a complete waste of time. And so I was really, really troubled by that and thought about things. My original career was in high tech with IBM and Oracle, so I know a thing or two about designing and developing applications. So I charted out this whole book marketing platform, which is now Bookkarma, and it is an international book marketing platform where authors help other authors market their books around the world globally through shared social networks. So they kind of go hand in hand. You need to write really great, compelling content, but you also need to connect with your audience.
Absolutely. Well, I think that one of the things that our audience, maybe they're hearing kind of deja vu. It's tough to get compelling content out there, and it's tough to connect with the right audience. These are some challenges. What are some of the other challenges for writers and people who are writing articles and books? And elaborate a little bit on how you help solve those problems, and what are some of the best strategies for that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that, because probably the most difficult thing is, well, the writing isn't always easy too, because in a lot of the people that I work with and other experts in business, etc., they're not really writers. They're what I call livers. They've learned things and been through things, and they have compelling messages to share, but they may not be writers. So that's the writing, the compelling content. That's one challenge. But after that, it's rising above the crowd and being heard. There are a lot of voices out there, and so you need to be able to distinguish yourself and to get exposure, which is great where influence comes in, because that's exactly what you all do, is help them become established as an expert and get exposure in a wide variety of different venues. And then probably the third challenge is to really, craft a focused message that the reader can follow, and it is strong and it's targeted. And that's one of the things that I find that writers need a lot of help with.
Absolutely. And it seems like one of the issues is we need to get something out there as a thought leader, something that someone's going to actually remember later on.
Exactly.
How do you get started writing something like that?
Well, that brings up an excellent point. We write to be read, right? But you don't want somebody to read something and just go in and out. You can be entertaining and engaging, but if they don't remember what your message was, then it just isn't. That's probably not the impact that you want to make. So you really need to start with what I call a targeted foundation. And what that means in my world anyway, and with the people that I work with, is to know the purpose of your piece and who your audience is and why you are writing these. And you need to pull these things together in a purpose statement. And I have a little formula that helps people to do that. So you have to start with that foundation of a purpose statement.
So Nancy, this is kind of like your trade secret in a way, but you're going to tell us,
Yeah.
or at least I hope you will.
I will, yeah.
How do you actually write this purpose statement, and why is it so significant?
It's significant because it's, everything that you write is going to target what the purpose is and who the audience is. You need to be really defined about what you want to say, and your audience needs to be targeted. I mean, and I'll give you a little example of this, and this has to do with books, but people will come to me and say, well, everybody wants to read this book. And one example, I'll use this in a humorous way. I had a client who was writing a book on tax planning. She goes, everybody's going to want to read this book. And I said, well, I don't want to read it, And I said, let's get this more refined. Let's say, people in, maybe in young families, age group, 30 to 45 who are raising children in the home are going to want to read her book about tax planning for families. So get targeted about who you want to reach. Don't try to be everything to everybody. But when you start with your purpose statement, there's pretty much 3 components to it. And as an aside, I want to mention that you all influence are publishing an article that I wrote. I think it's going out today that talks about the power of legacy, and all this information is in that article. So I know that your audience will be able to access that. But you want to start with the purpose of the book. So what is it, or your article? Because whatever you're writing, an article is not the same as a blog, and a blog isn't the same as a book. So you need to figure out what that purpose is. So you probably have an idea of what you want to write. I mean, I hope you do. Otherwise, you wouldn't be writing something, right? But I would challenge you to distill it down into a purpose statement that starts with the purpose of this article is to, and then complete that message. And bear in mind that it's one sentence. It's not a big paragraph. It's just one sentence. And that's a good way to get started. That's the first component of that formula.
Absolutely. So you say it's a fill-in-the-blank formula, and that's one of the things that we kind of touted here, is that you can actually just take the different aspects, plug them in, define your purpose. So that's step 1. What are some of these other steps?
Well, the other 2 components are who's the audience and why the message. So I'll fall back to the article example that I mentioned that you all are publishing today. So what's the purpose of the article? And so in the article that I wrote for you all, it said that purpose of the article was to inspire others to create a larger legacy. Okay, that's the purpose of it. But then you have to get down and say, who is the audience, and target that audience. And the article was written for entrepreneurs and business owners. So then I expanded the purpose statement to say the article is for entrepreneurs and business owners who want to create a larger legacy. And then there's the third component is, why are you writing the message? And this is where the part comes in about being remembered. Because you don't want people to just read things. You want to create a change in the reader. Even if it's a slight change, something that moves them or motivates them to some type of action. And that's the why behind your message. And so, if they forget it, they may as well not have read it, and you may as well not have written it. But if you create a change in the reader in the process of that, then they will remember it. So in the article example I wrote for you guys, it said the article would inspire entrepreneurs and business owners to first crystallize and then expand their message to create a greater legacy. So an action item is important there. And this was inspire and crystallize their message. So you want to make sure that you have this three, component, fill in the blank kind of formula for your purpose statement and drive towards that. And when you have that as a solid foundation before you start writing, then you know exactly what you want to do. You know what you're writing, who you're writing it for, and what action you want them to take.
Absolutely. And you wouldn't even just recommend this with long pieces of content, books, white papers, these types of things. You would recommend doing this for essentially anything that someone would create. It could even just be a blog post.
I recommend it for an email, Seriously, for anything, you can use this. Why? What is the purpose? Who's the audience? And what's, why the message? And it works. It really, and you know what? We tend to use too many words when we write, and this really will crystallize things. And that's when you really communicate with someone else. When you have these elements there and you use this as your foundation, then you're not throwing in a bunch of extra words that confuse people or, going off on tangents. Just be really targeted and focused.
Absolutely. I think it could even change the way we communicate with people, making sure that what we're saying resonates with them, we're saying the right things. We're saying things not just because we want to say them, but because it's the right message for the right person.
Right, exactly. And that's how that's the way you can benefit them. You give them what they want and need, what they're seeking, and you get to the point.
Absolutely. So we have the purpose statement. Nancy, what comes next?
Well, after you have that, then it's time to really craft your message. So, and the most effective way to communicate a message is by telling stories. Now, we don't really tend to remember concepts very well, but when you seal a concept with a story, that really helps people to remember it. And so what I really advocate is that you make your point and then you tell the reader a story about why that point is valid or what makes that true. Give them an example of how that is put into practice.
Absolutely. So tell me about the different elements of stories.
Sure.
As you're developing your article, you're developing your book, you're creating a message. What are the critical concepts behind that?
Well, you've heard that stories have three parts, right? A beginning, a middle, and an end. Well, that's not very useful, is it? I advocate that stories do have three parts, but they're three parts that create an arc. And so the first part of it is, what did it used to be like? So you're telling a story to illustrate a point, and so you tell what the before situation was like. And then you talk about what happened, and the what happened part is the change that was created in the reader or in the example that you're using. So things were one way, before, what it used to be like, then something happened, and then the third element of your story is what it's like now. And that's a formula that you can use over and over and over to make points. And it's what it used to be like, what happened, and what it's like now. And so what that does is it talks about the progression in your story of the way things used to be, what happened, and what they are like now afterwards. And that particular story is illustrating the point or the concept that you made earlier in your presentation.
It's a good way to be remembered.
Yeah, people remember stories. You think about that, we even as children, that's the way we learn. There's been a lot written about telling stories in business scenarios, but that's how we learn, and that's one of the ways that you'll be remembered.
Absolutely. So what are some other ways that people can be remembered when they're telling their stories?
Well, this has to do with a concept in writing called voice. And everybody has their own voice. Like, you have your speaking voice, but your voice means that you need, in writing, it means that you need to sound like you. You need to sound like who you are. And I think often when people are writing articles, or they're thinking about how can I, write something that really impacts people and all, they may tend to take a little bit of a step back from themselves about who they really are. But it's really important that in your voice is that you sound like you, and that you're really vulnerable with the reader. I mean, when you're telling stories, the best person to tell them about is yourself. I mean, tell your reader about your mistakes and your setbacks, as well as your successes. You want them to get in and to be able to know you and to feel connected with you, because that's the way that they'll really feel like you have the right to share something with them and that they can learn from you. And I'll give you, a little example about that. So when we were preparing for this webcast, if you remember, Mark, we did a little dry run through a couple of days ago. And I said, well, when we really do that, I'm going to be in this different office where it's set up all, professional and stuff. And you guys were like, why? Why would you do that? Because actually, this is my real workspace. I have a home office, and this is it. And, and then I started thinking about, you're right. I mean, this is where I work, and this is whatever I do what I do. So, I was taking that little step back and kind of thinking I'm going to create a little barrier between who I really am and what I want to communicate. But that, I don't know why I do that, because I teach people to do just the opposite of it. So I need those reminders as well. But it's really important to sound like you, because when you write subsequent articles and when you get published and you're known for who you are, it should get to the point where readers can read something you wrote and they already recognize your voice without seeing that byline. So just be who you are.
Absolutely. So it's not about coming across in this authoritative style, but it's just being you and sharing your real expertise and being honestly a genuine human, right?
Well, that too, but I would also suggest that don't try to come off as the expert. You already are. Just share what you know as the expert that you are right now, and being genuine and transparent with the reader really will take you a long way. You can't sustain a false image of yourself for very long. That's a lot of work. It takes too much energy anyway. So just be who you are. Just be comfortable sharing what you know. And, you already are an expert in what you're doing. That's why you have the material to share and the messages to send out. But if you want to rise above the crowd and be heard, be who you are.
Absolutely. Well, Nancy, I really appreciate you joining us today and talking with us about not only what you do with the Book Professor and with Bookkarma, but also just telling our audience how to create a message that's compelling and a message that's going to be remembered. I'd encourage people to go in the live Q&A chat, leave us some questions, and we're actually doing some question and answer right now. So please leave your comments, and we will get them over to Nancy here. And as we're waiting for some comments to come in, I do have one for you, Nancy.
Okay.
What's the next step with you and the Book Professor? What do you hope to be doing in the next 3 to 6 months in terms of growth?
Yeah, well, I'm glad you said that, because I really feel like my role in the world is to help get these important messages out and to help connect the message with the audience that needs that. So we've developed some online classes that take people through this to make it very efficient. I mainly work with entrepreneurs and business owners and executives, and I respect their time, that they don't have a lot of time to waste, but people want to leave their legacy. They have something to say. So we have online courses coming up. You can go to the website, thebookprofessor.com, and you'll get a lot of information there. But my goal is to help thousands of people to get their message out. And the thing that's really cool about it too is, Mark, is that Influence & Co. and the Book Professor, we're actually kind of doing the same thing, except we're working from different ends of it. So one of my main goals in the process that I take my clients through is that when they're finished, they have a book, but the book isn't the end of things. The book is actually a platform that you can use to launch your messages in multiple venues. So we construct your book in what I call problem solution sets. And it's always from the viewpoint of the reader. What do they need, and what kind of information are they seeking? What kind of help are they looking for? But when you're finished with your book, you should be able to take every one of those chapters and repurpose them into articles like you all work with, or into, maybe you want to develop an online course or a keynote or seminars or workshops or even podcasts. The point is that you want to be able to reach your audience at the point where they're already engaging and where they're comfortable receiving information. So it, like I said, it's not, the point of a book isn't just the book. It's being able to use that and to repurpose your content to reach your audience in multiple venues.
Absolutely. So it's only the beginning when you hit publish, or when you post the email, or you post the blog article, or you get the book out the door. That's the very beginning.
Exactly. And targeted communication is really important, and there aren't a whole lot of people that are very good at it. So what I'm hoping, from this information today and from the article that you all are publishing, is that it'll give people a solid place to start to be really direct in what their messaging is.
Absolutely. Well, Nancy, it doesn't look like we're getting any questions. We must just have a little bit of a shy audience here this afternoon.
Don't be shy.
Is there anything else you'd like to cover with us here on the webinar?
Well, I just really appreciate what you all are doing, because when I talked about how it's so difficult to rise above the crowd, that's exactly what you all are doing. And we have lived in a world where communication used to be pretty much controlled. In fact, in the whole publishing world, the traditional publishing houses were really the gatekeepers of ideas. They controlled what messages went out, how people were going to be entertained, etc. But we live in a different world now, not just with books, but with all sorts of communication venues. But it's still so hard to be heard and to rise above the crowd. And I really appreciate what you all are doing with, helping your clients to get the recognition, that they are looking for, to be published in different, magazines and different areas that you all, pursue. And you guys do a really good job of that, because they already are experts in what they're doing. But there's a gap between being that expert and being recognized at it. So people like Influence and Company and me are really trying to make that easier for people to be known in their field.
Absolutely. I actually got an interesting question from one of our viewers here, Darnell, and I won't steal your thunder here, Nancy. He wants to know, how large is your core team and what are their roles?
You're looking at it. Actually, this is it. This is me. I'm a solopreneur, and so I am kind of the end-all be-all for the Book Professor and Bookkarma. Now, I have hired for Bookkarma. The thing that's interesting about Bookkarma is there really isn't anything like it in the publishing industry, and it's come about in the rise of independently published authors and books. They haven't had a venue or a way to get the word out about their materials, and we're into the second wave of self-publishing now. It used to be really bad. I mean, the books were really bad. Now they stand shoulder to shoulder with anything on the market, and those voices deserve to be heard. So what Bookkarma does is, author number one will take their ISBN, and Bookkarma will pull that information about their book onto the platform, and they write their social messages that they want to go out about their book. It's then delivered to a book queue. And author number two, who might be in Sydney, Australia, is browsing the book queue, and it's authors only. They all want to be on here to promote each other's books. So author number two will see that book in the queue, and with one click, they share it out to their social networks. So social media is great, but you're kind of swirling around your own network all the time. This allows authors to break through the boundaries of their own networks and to reach a global audience without having to cultivate it. So when you asked me about my team, I hired a tech team to build this. I didn't do all the coding myself, of course not. But it's really having an impact on authors. It's another way, like what Influence is doing, to get the word out about quality materials.
Well, that's some good information, Nancy. I appreciate that. And Darnell, I hope that answers your questions. She's going at it as a team of one. But we also have a question here from David Gardner. He's the founder of Color Jar. What David wants to know is, what do you think about written content as compared to video blogs and video content, and the interplay there?
I think they're all great. And like I said earlier, you know, you want to reach your audience in the way that they like to engage. And so I think what you would do is when you're using, you know, video or written content, whatever it is, or you know, I mentioned podcasts before, you're able to reach a different audience because, you know, they don't all engage in the same way. So I think that whatever you can do to employ all of these techniques is to your benefit.
Absolutely. We have a follow-up question here from Tim Turner. One of our viewers is asking, how does Amazon affect the authors? So the you know, retail giant Amazon.com, as it applies to an author or a contributor or someone like that who creates content.
Well, you want to be on Amazon, that's for sure. I'm not quite sure exactly what the nature of your question is, but you know, Amazon's the giant, and you know, when you write a book, you want to have it on Amazon.
Yeah. And I wonder, you know, the question could pertain to, you know, the commoditization of written content, maybe, and I'm only kind of guessing at the intent of the question here, but you know, the rights of the author versus the rights of the, you know, the I guess publishing platform,
Right. Okay.
creating kind of a
Yeah. That's really a complicated question, or the answer is kind of complicated. You know, authors have a love-hate relationship with Amazon. You know, some of the bigger ones are not, you know, fond of them, and you may have heard of buzz going on in the industry about that. But the truth is that, you know, Amazon, they move books, and so, you know, for anybody certainly who's independently published, you definitely want to be on Amazon.
And then we got another follow-up from Tim as well, regarding the effectiveness of a book versus a blog. And I think, Nancy, even to kind of set this up, it all depends on intent, and they can actually play together well, too.
Yes, and you know what? A lot of people start writing their material on a blog, and then they have such a host of, you know, such a wealth of writing that they realize that they can organize this into a longer format of a book. So you know, seriously, communicating is communicating, and if you're writing a blog, I mean, it's not like an either or thing. I think they can go hand in hand.
Great. And we actually have another question here from Darnell, who had asked us something before, but another thing that he wants to know, what's a daily routine that you employ that keeps you ahead of the curve as an authority in your field, something that you do daily to work on that?
Well, I obviously I read a lot. I have a lot of contacts in the publishing industry. I mean, I just got back from Germany at the Frankfurt Book Fair, where I spoke on that international stage. You know, I'm always in contact with. I've got you know, channel partners that I work with that are, you know, I learn things from them in the industry. So I'm in constant contact with publishers, with editors, with book designers, with you know, marketing experts and that type of thing. So as far as a daily routine, oh gosh, well, it starts with getting up at 5 a.m. and ends about 10 p.m. at night. But you know, it's like any other community. You're invested in it, and you rub shoulders with those people so that you're always up on what's going on in the industry.
All right, well, Nancy, it's a little past 1 o'clock Central here, and I know we don't want to keep people, but what I'm going to do is, and I appreciate your time here with us today, we're going to be sending out a follow-up email that's going to have the archive of this webcast in case you missed any portion of it. You can go back for reference purposes or share with your connections. We'll also send out Nancy's contact information. I know we have some unanswered questions here, and I'm sure that she'd be happy to connect with you and talk to you more about what she does and what makes a compelling message. So, Nancy, thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mark. Thanks a lot.
All right, and thanks to all of our viewers. And again, for more information about what we do, you can visit our website, influenceandco.com. You can visit Nancy's site, thebookprofessor.com, and you can email Nancy Nancy at thebookprofessor.com with some of those unanswered questions, and I'm sure she'd love to talk with you. So thank you for watching, and enjoy the rest of your day.